Shalom lekulam, ahlan wa salam. Over the past 23 months, Israel has waged a merciless war against Gaza. An estimated 60,000 Gazans have died. Israel has withheld access to water, food, and medical care. Children are starving to death. It's cruel, inhumane, and it's hard to watch. This escalation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict began with the 7th of October attacks, when more than 1,000 young people were murdered at a music festival in Israel in 2023. Some are still held hostage. And they weren't just murdered. Many were beheaded. Others were burned alive. The Israeli government has argued that they must maintain a sustained war on Gaza to prevent another such attack. Entire sections of Gaza have been flattened. More than 1 million people have been displaced. Indeed, some Israelis support these attacks. Some are openly indifferent to Palestinian suffering. But many of us are not indifferent at all. We're crushed. We want it to stop. We protest. And we vote. Something else is afoot. The actions of the Israeli government have sparked a resurgence of centuries-old anti-Semitic tropes now dressed in modern political language. Tropes that have haunted Jews for centuries. Tropes that don't criticize the Israeli government. They dehumanize Jewish people. There are two truths in this story. The war is a humanitarian catastrophe, but it has also rekindled old lies about Jewish power, greed, and influence. Criticizing Israel's actions in Gaza is unquestionably fair, but blaming all Jews or using the war to revive old conspiracy theories, that's not justice or political critique. That's hate. There's an implication that Jews concur about the attacks on Gaza. But if you've ever been to a Shabbat Friday night dinner among Jews, you'll know that we don't agree about anything, ever. Many Jews have never set foot in Israel, and many Israelis aren't Jewish. It's absurd to imagine that there is any form of consensus. The historian Robert Wistridge described anti-Semitism as the oldest hatred. Jews were depicted as enemies as far back as ancient Egypt.
Dancing by the Nile.
Chronicles of the death of Jesus Christ crystallized ancient and modern anti-Semitism.
Next. Crucifixion. Yes, good. Out of the door, line on the left, one cross each.
During the Middle Ages, such stories introduced the idea of usury into depictions of Christ's death. The notion was that Jews convinced the Romans to kill Christ on their behalf because the Jews wanted to protect their own finances. Of course, money lending is how economies work, but it was boiled down to 3 themes. 1, Jews are involved with money and not in a good way. 2, Jews are smart, but they're crafty and devious. And 3, Jews are small in number, but they have undue influence, even influential enough to convince the Romans to kill one of their own. Money, craftiness, small with undue influence. And one more item, blood. Blood libel cases emerged during the Middle Ages, cases like William of Norwich. This was an era when child mortality was common and unexplained. Someone needed to be blamed if a child became ill or died and nobody could explain it. Stories like William of Norwich claimed that Jews needed the blood of children to make matzah, a cracker-like unleavened bread served during the holiday of Passover, Pesach.
Got a question about the bread that is unleavened, causing indigestion called matzah. Eat it for a week, we got stuff.
If you've ever seen or tasted matzah, you'll know that it has no flavor, no color, and couldn't possibly contain blood or anything else. Top tip. If you want to try matzah, make matzah brai. Take 2 pieces of matzah, break them up a bit, and put them in a strainer. Pour boiling water on them for about a minute. In a separate bowl, lightly scramble 2 eggs. Put the eggs in matzah and about 2 tablespoons of bubbling hot butter. I recommend Kerrygold. Stir and flip it around, break up the matzah a bit until the eggs are just a bit more solid. Add plenty of black pepper and a bit of salt. It's best served with applesauce. See no baby blood. Jews were and are financial scapegoats. Europe had monarchies. The kings and queens spent lavishly on themselves and on wars near and far. They had debts, and they needed to blame someone for their lack of cash. Blood libel cases and financial mishaps were used as rationales to expel the Jews from Britain, France, Spain, and much of Europe. When they were finally allowed back in, Jews were banned from most professions, especially those with guilds. Many ended up in finance and money lending, not by choice, but because it was one of the few trades allowed. Jews were on the edges of banking, higher risk trading and investments, exacerbating stereotypes about devious Shylocks. Many Jews were involved in the trade of precious metals and gems, which is why many have gold, silver, and diamond in their surnames. The small group with too much influence narrative continued to flourish. A fake document, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, came into circulation in 1902, and is still around. It pretends to be proof of a hidden but powerful Jewish conspiracy. And various iterations of the Great Replacement theory have been told since the late 19th century. It's not that Jews would come and replace anyone. It's that Jews would somehow mastermind bringing in immigrants or people of color to undermine a white Christian society. Then it happened. 6 million were killed in an unimaginable, industrialized mass murder. 2/3 of the Jewish population of Europe was killed. One gas chamber at Auschwitz could kill more than 1 million Jews per year. There was no financial gain, no political benefit. There were arguments that concentration camps had manufacturing enterprises, and no, they didn't contribute much of anything. This was about hatred. Toward the end of the war, Nazi leadership ordered the end of transports to Auschwitz, and the transports continued anyway. There are still widely believed falsehoods about the Shoah, the Holocaust. Perhaps the most common falsehood is that Jews owned the banks and the Nazis were jealous. And no, we didn't own the banks, and so what if we did? Another claim is that Jews were given Israel as some sort of consolation prize after 6 million of us were murdered. Palestine was a British colony, and Great Britain had been considering formation of a Jewish homeland before the Holocaust. Others claim that Jews got something out of the Holocaust. You guessed it, money. Reparations. Yes, Germany did pay reparations, but these were minuscule compared with the lives lost and economic destruction. The other claim is that Jews are somehow hyper-focused on the Holocaust at the expense of other genocides, or that Jews are somehow overplaying the grief of the Holocaust.
That just sounds like bizarre propaganda.
Whoever said that other genocides are immaterial? Nobody is claiming that the tragedies in Cambodia, Armenia, Rwanda, and others are somehow irrelevant. It's just a way to dilute and diminish suffering. The formation of the State of Israel in 1948 was not entirely a victory. The War of Independence against Great Britain resulted in death and terror against those already living in British-controlled Palestine. More than 700,000 Palestinian people fled Israel during the Nakba, the catastrophe. Some left voluntarily, and others were forced out. Palestinian villages were gunned down. Homes were seized. Palestinians were not welcomed with open arms by Arab neighbors. Many were treated as second-class citizens even after they fled Israel. In 1967, Israel occupied largely Palestinian lands of the West Bank and Gaza. Yes, it gave Jews and Israelis access to our holiest site, Hakotel Hama'avi, but it was a harsh trade-off. Palestinians have lived under various forms of military control and restriction. They have faced injustice, economic hardship, and statelessness. The first and second intifadas were uprisings against this occupation. These were relentless attacks, suicide bombings, assassinations, keeping Israel in a state of siege. Even today, it is usually 1 degree of separation to someone who is killed in a terrorist attack. The 7th of October attacks weren't just an act of resistance to the occupation, they were an act of terror. But Israel's murderous response goes against some Zionist principles. Zionism, the will for a Jewish homeland, can be debated, just like everything else. The father of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, wrote in Alt Neuland, Old New World, about a land where both Jews and Palestinians could live together, with Palestinian people holding high political office and solid social status. Ein zo agada, Herzl wrote. It's no dream. Sorry, Ted. Dream deferred. Whose homeland is it? I don't have an answer. We should have probably asked Claire Danes. This isn't a simple game of good versus evil. Although I don't want to put words in the voice of Palestinian people, I assume that most are exhausted, afraid, and angry. You may have heard chants "from the river to the sea," implying that Israel is illegitimate and should be therefore obliterated. Do you know how painful it is to hear that, or how painful it is to know that Israel has said the same to Palestinians? Or how painful it is to watch anti-Semitic displays on university campuses around the world? We're talking about kids who have never even been to Israel, and who may even oppose Israel's actions in Gaza, but they're taking the blame. And what's the counter-argument? You know this one. They're Jewish kids. They're rich. They'll be fine. Israel's assault on Palestinians has to end now. But blaming Jews and Israeli people as a whole is short-sighted and morally bankrupt. We don't need a lesson on how we've mistreated Palestinian people. We know that, just as Palestinians don't need to be schooled about how the missiles and suicide bombings have kept Israelis awake at night for decades. If I had a solution, I would tell you, but blowing up hospitals in Gaza poisons any hope for peace and security. I'm still a patriot, and I love Israel. It's home, but we can do better. As we say in our prayer for peace, Uvizman Kariv, may peace come swiftly and soon. Shalom Rav. Assalamu alaikum. See you in the next one.
כל העולם כולו גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד, גשר צר מאוד.